Sustain Your Global Youth Service Day Project webinar. This webinar is all about how we can create sustainable projects and projects that can be easily replicated on GYSD and beyond. So welcome everyone to tonight's webinar. And if you remember that we're doing a Twitter chat alongside the webinar, so please feel free to log into Twitter or Facebook. TweetDeck is a great resource to use, and use hashtag GYSD to tie the conversation together. We're looking not only for answers to questions, but questions themselves, and we're trying to assemble a coalition of experts from around the world that can help give answers and questions to any Global Youth Service Day project idea that comes up, and especially pertaining to how to sustain and build new projects. We've assembled an expert panel, and we look very much forward to what everyone has to offer tonight. Our first panelist will be Katie Dolan. Second panelist will be Kavinjat Thinakun. We call her Kay. And our third panelist will be Joshua Johnson. So Katie, I'm going to share my keyboard and mouse with you. Feel free to kick us off here tonight.
Hi. So my name is Katie Dolan. I grew up in Washington State, and now I'm a freshman at Harvard University in Massachusetts. And really my nonprofit expertise comes from the organization that I founded when I was 15, which was 3 years ago now, called Let 'em Play. And what we do is make music accessible to low-income students by providing instruments and also teaching clinics. So based on that work, I was chosen to be a youth ambassador for the YSA and CAM partnership in 2013-14. And I currently serve on the Youth Advisory Council of the National Youth Leadership Council. So I continue to be sort of involved in these service issues. So basically how I go about basically the sustainability of my project, which I guess I should provide background to elaborate as to why I have any reason to be talking about sustainability. So as I said, I founded my project when I was 15 years old, and it's still very much thriving today. It has grown in many ways. We started out sort of very humbly, as you can see on the screen there in that picture. That was like our first presentation, which is a solid trifold display board that was handcrafted by me in my basement. And now we have actually 3 branches nationwide. First in Spokane, Washington, which was the original, also in Chapel Hill, North Carolina at UNC, and then here in Cambridge at Harvard. So I have some thoughts on sustainability, and really I think the first step to sort of taking the next steps in your project is thorough reflection. And you can actually approach this in a very sort of elementary who, what, when, where, why sort of analysis. So first of all, when you're looking at your project, who was valuable on your team? And valuable traits to have in team members are, they can range greatly in terms of what you're looking for personally. But in my opinion, you definitely want people around you who will challenge you and not always agree with you. I think that's something that is very undervalued in sort of teamwork on projects today. You want people that will not just take everything you say as fact and will definitely say, Katie, I don't really agree with that, or I don't know, I think we could do it this way and it would be better. You also obviously want people who are very dedicated to your cause and who you can trust to sort of do all the tasks that they're assigned. And then innovation is also very important when you're looking at projects like this, and especially to sustain a project, you're going to constantly be having to come up with sort of new ideas, new ways to do things. So you want innovative people on your team as well. So to move on to the what question, you can attack what worked and what didn't in sort of a big and small sense. So did your project work in general? Did you raise your goal of money? Did you collect enough items? I mean, whatever your goal is, did you meet it? And how, if you did meet that goal, how did you do it? And if you didn't meet the goal, why do you think that is? So we often, after events, my team and I sit down and make just very long lists. And some of these things are very trivial, like I didn't like how the bowl was on the right side of the table versus the left in terms of collecting donations. Even small things like that are very important to look at as you sort of evolve your project to the next level. So then to move on to the when and also sort of the where, you want to sort of analyze the conditions that you had when you initially did your project. So if we're talking global youth service day projects, you'll be doing them in the month of April. And so did that work for you or not? Was that springtime good? Was it too close to spring break, which is, I know, a problem that some people occasionally encounter? And then where did you do it? Are you located in sort of a small town? Are you in a more urban area? Did you actually do your project like on a street corner, or did you do it in like the woods or something? And you want to look at whether that worked or not. Basically, some of that reflection is crucially important. And also you want to look at why. What was your motivation for doing the project in the first place? And sort of why will you keep doing the project in the future? So to move on to sort of how you then evolve your project, my team and I heavily believe in the power of the franchise model. So I think everyone's familiar with what a franchise is. You can think of, lots of things like McDonald's is a franchise. There's lots of different branches. So that's the way that my organization personally decided to branch out, through a franchise model. So we have 3 different sort of franchises. And basically, you improve your original project to create the franchise model. And that's through the reflection process that I just discussed. But then what's crucial to being able to sort of franchise your brand and your project is extensive planning and especially extensive documentation. And that mostly occurs through institutional memory. So to define institutional memory, I think it says basically a lot, just the definition that you can find on Google. So institutional memory is the collective set of facts, concepts, and experiences and know-how held by a group of people. However, as it transcends individuals, it requires ongoing transmission of these memories between members of the group. So in my team, we use Google Drive to sort of keep all of our documents together and create the really institutional memory so people can come back and follow our footsteps to replicate what we've done theoretically in more branches across the country. And then finally, I was asked to sort of provide the perspective of a student who had a project in high school and then transitioned to the college setting, which is what I've done in the last year. So just very briefly to talk through college, because I know it will be relevant to a few of you. College is a very valuable way to begin the franchising process because a few of you, I'm sure, will be leaving your current community to go to school, and so you'll have, therefore, a whole new community to bring your ideas and your project to. So that's basically how we decided to franchise. So I go to this University of Massachusetts, so I brought it here, and then my partner goes to University of North Carolina, and that's why we now have a branch in Chapel Hill. And then it's really your choice whether or not to align with the university. My partner does, so our branch in Chapel Hill is actually sponsored by UNC and therefore receives funding through the school, whereas our branch in Cambridge is not funded through Harvard, so it doesn't receive any Harvard funding automatically. However, there is a whole new community of resources when you start a new branch with your college. There's lots of funding that can be provided to student nonprofits. There's usually some sort of innovation project through the college that sort of promotes these sort of projects and then wants to give you money for them. But at this point, just note that institutional memory becomes very important if you're wanting to sort of spread out, because you need to have all of your steps documented so people can follow them and basically replicate your project with hopefully a few more improvements and evolvements along the way. So that is all I have to say. Thank you guys so much. And I'm excited to hear what our other presenters have to say.
Thank you, Katie. That was excellent. So next we're going to move on to Joshua Johnson. Joshua is a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science teacher at Center City Public Charter School, the Brightwood campus. He began his tenure at Center City and his career as an educator through Teach for America. Since then, he has served years as the middle school science lead and summer academy principal. Joshua received the Youth Service America Harris Wofford Award for National Young Educator of the Year and Teacher Leader of the Year award from the D.C. Association of Charter Public Schools. This year, Joshua began consulting with Achieve Incorporated to support in the creation of state content model frameworks from the next generation science standards. He graduated cum laude with a bachelor's degree in chemistry from St. Lawrence University and earned a master's degree in teaching with a science focus from American University. Follow him on Twitter at Mr. J Tweeter. And Joshua, I'm going to turn over control to you now, and I'm going to mute myself, so feel free to take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for tuning in today to the webinar. I'm really excited to hear, like Katie just said, the perspectives from other great leaders in this field and hear about the other great things going on. And I'll share a little bit about my story working with Youth Service America and then also incorporating practices to making a sustainable Global Youth Service Day project. So the first piece I wanted to talk about is thinking about a sustainable project design in 3 Ps. The first part I wanted to think about sustainably when I created the project that I was in charge of is how to plan sustainably. The project that we came up with at my school is called the Sustainable Scholars Program. We chose that name specifically for environmental sustainability, but I think it's become a great omen as the project has also become sustainable, so we've been able to implement year after year. I think an important thing to when you choose a project is thinking about it as a multi-phase project. That every year you're not going to be able to complete every single thing you want to do, whether it's a long-term project or for one day for Global Youth Service Day. So I've really tried to think of my project as a multi-phase project. The first year that we started implementing it with support from Youth Service America, we built 2 garden beds in the back of the school to provide sustainable farmed vegetables to a next-door women's shelter. The following year, we added a small greenhouse to this area and community. The year after that, we added sustainable irrigation through rain barrels. And then last year, we added an outdoor classroom so students could use this space academically to build service into the curriculum as an essential component. The second P for purchase is something that I think is really important. I received some financial support from Youth Service America in beginning this project, and it allowed me some of the seed funding in order to make purchases that we could use year after year after year, including things like some power tools or shovels, things that don't go bad after 1 year. So thinking about using your funding in reusable materials allows your project to be continued year after year. Then we only need to really purchase some seeds to make sure that we can continue this project the next year and build into this space. Tomorrow we'll be adding some fig trees to the area that you see behind, and those were donated for free from a local organization. The third P in my sustainable project idea is to publicize it to as many people as possible. Global Youth Service Day to me is really a celebration of service. I have consistently included 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in what Youth Service America has called a semester of service. So we infuse academic content along with service practices. But Global Youth Service Day is an event that I open to the entire school, kindergarten through 8th grade, to allow as many people as that want to come out to celebrate science and celebrate service in a really exciting way. Things that I wanted to share with the group about when you're preparing for an event is not just to think of it as a singular day. There's a lot that comes before the event of Global Youth Service Day, during, and after. The picture you can see here is one of the days that we had, including all sorts of students, lots of different teachers, community members, and AmeriCorps volunteers. In order to prepare for that event, a lot of thought had to go into the logistics, thinking about what materials were necessary, what people were going to attend the event, logistics such as permission slips, and then just making sure that everything was running smoothly. During the event, one of the things that I think is most important to relay if you're thinking about planning a Global Youth Service Day event is to designate someone as an operations director or a logistics facilitator that can really manage the entire day. This person might not be the person who gets their hands dirty and digs in the dirt, but it's important to have someone available to make sure everyone's where they need to be and all of the parts of the project are getting done as successfully as possible. And then I also want to echo what Katie said moments ago, to include reflection in the process, because that's the only way that you can then improve your project to the next year. So after the event is over, we've always sat down with the students and other people involved in the project to think of ways to, one, celebrate and get excited about helping our community, and then build ways to make next year even better than the year before. I think the more invested students get is because that they get to choose the project and they get to make it better every year. And then finally, a few lessons that I've learned over the past 5 years is that there can never be too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. I think the more people that can be involved in a Global Youth Service Day project, a semester of service, a service year, the better. Because then there's more brains working on the project, more thoughtful ideas, more creativity gets added so that the project can be better each year. Secondly, I'm a huge proponent of including service in learning. I always try to align the academic skills that we're working on, whether it's germination or pollination, greenhouse gases, whatever we're speaking about, and how we can tie that to the garden and the community around us so that students don't see this as something that's insular. They can really take science and service and apply it to their everyday lives. Like I mentioned on the previous slide, I think planning, executing, and reflecting should not be a one-day task. Those things involve a lot of energy and a lot of effort from multiple people, so you should really think of this in terms of longevity as opposed to preparing for a single day. Student or participant input is critical. I think if someone approaches this as the leader, it doesn't engage the participants as much as possible. If you allow and really act as more of a facilitator as opposed to a leader in the project, it allows the kids or the participants to create the project like they want to. And then the last thing I would just say is that Global Youth Service Day is a lot of fun. It involves a lot of work, but I think the more fun you have with it, the easier it is to make it sustainable and create the sequel to your project, because you're going to want to keep doing it every single year. To conclude, I just want to say that I've utilized a few resources from YSA. The most important one that I've used in my classroom is called Classrooms with a Cause. It's a fantastic resource that's available for free on the Youth Service America website, and it gives you tons of worksheets, brainstorming sheets, and a curriculum that can walk you through planning a project, whether it's one day long or a whole year long. So I would say definitely check that out. And then the final thing that I would recommend is thinking about the 4 C's in relationship to planning your project, especially if you're an educator. So thinking about how you can incorporate communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity to allow the participants to build those 21st century skills to prepare them for college, careers, and beyond. Thanks so much for listening, and feel free to tweet any questions if there isn't something that I answered for you here on the webcast.
Great. Thank you so much, Joshua. That was incredible and a really unique perspective from an educator that we rely on in the field to use the resources that YSA develops in order to create sustainable Global Youth Service Day projects. So moving on, we'd like to say that the next upcoming webinar in this series will be on April 8th. This will conclude our GYSD webinar series and get us ready for Global Youth Service Day, which is on April 17th, 18th, and 19th of this year. And the campaign this year is about Your Story Starts Today. That the chapter of service that you are writing every day with your words and with your actions, we're celebrating them on Global Youth Service Day, and we're beginning a new story on that day. So we're asking you to raise your voice, tell us who you are, what you want to do, and get everyone you know involved. Map it out. That means map out a place on the Global Youth Service Day map, and also map out a plan, and then to tell your story. We don't want these projects that happen around the world, from Sri Lanka to Syracuse, New York, to happen in a vacuum. We want everyone to know about it, and we want to know the who, what, and why you are serving on Global Youth Service Day. As Joshua mentioned in his presentation, YSA has, over the years, been developing along with educators, curricula that kind of dive into what service and learning can be. We have Semester of Service, Classrooms with a Cause, and many other great resources. The Youth Changing the World Toolkit was just revised and now is available on GYSD.org and YSA.org. So I encourage everyone to go to our websites and download them and incorporate them into your Global Youth Service Day projects and your lessons leading up to Global Youth Service Day and beyond. And finally, we'd ask you to share your story. So share the story of your service projects, of why you choose to serve and what you learn from serving, and your Global Youth Service Day projects using hashtag GYSD on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Vine, anything. Just get it out there. Get your message out there so the world can know what you're doing and how the millions of young people around the world are making a difference every day for Global Youth Service Day. And that Global Youth Service Day is just the beginning. So again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of all of the YSA staff, and have a great Wednesday night.